Good afternoon and welcome to the Carolina Catholic Spotlight Show. I'm your host, Gail Buckley Barringer, and my guest on the show today is Donna Marie Cooper O'Boyle. For those of you who may have missed our first interview with Donna Marie, let me just quickly give a bit of information about her. Donna Marie is an award-winning journalist and author and known worldwide not only as an author but as a speaker, a blogger, and a popular EWTN television host of 3 separate shows. And Donna is back with me today to discuss yet another book she has coming out. This woman is such a prolific writer. Donna, please give us the name of this book, the one we're going to talk about.
Gail, thank you so much for having me. Sure. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your warm words. This book is Prayerfully Waiting, a Catholic Grandmother's Prayer Journal.
I love that. You know, I know you were trying to decide on the title, and you had some ideas, and I think you chose well. I like this title.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, actually, maybe you're referring to another book I wrote similar to this one called Prayerfully Expecting. We could talk about that if you want.
Oh, yeah. No, I think, well, maybe I was. I don't know. You've written so many. I get confused. But unfortunately, I haven't been able, I haven't been blessed with grandchildren yet. I know from you and from other friends what a wonderful experience it is to be a grandparent. And tell us why you wrote this book.
Yes, thank you so much for asking. Well, basically, I have to backtrack a little bit to explain it. During a pregnancy, I was a precarious one, actually, and I was on complete bed rest. And during that time, I just started, I felt inspired to see a pregnancy as a 9-month novena of prayer. So I thought, wow, that's really pretty neat that God gives us this 9-month period, to prepare our hearts, to prepare our lives, to get ready for that little baby that's, thriving inside of us. So I saw the pregnancy as this novena of prayer. And that was when I wrote on little pieces of paper. I didn't have a computer or typewriter or anything. I started writing and pouring out my heart. A book that could be for an expectant mother would be like a journal. She would pray and she would learn about the faith and she could journal her thoughts and prayers. And that became Prayerfully Expecting, a 9-month novena for mothers to be. So I wrote that during my pregnancy, and Mother Teresa actually ended up writing the foreword to that book, if you could believe that. That was really an incredible blessing. And so later on, when I became a grandmother, it just suddenly came to me, oh my goodness, I just really felt that God wanted me to write a similar type of book, but for the grandmother, for the grandmother getting ready for that grandchild. So, we all know that grandmothers play such an important role. They're so beautiful in our lives. Those of us who are blessed to, have a grandmother or to have known their grandmother. I only knew one grandparent because the other 3, my other grandmother and my 2 grandfathers had passed away before I was born. But I had this wonderful, amazing, beautiful grandmother who really helped to nourish those seeds of faith, in my heart. And so I have so many fond memories of this beautiful woman in my life. And so, I wanted to be, God blessed me, a grandmother as well. And I thought, it would be wonderful to have a book where the grandmother could have her own, journal of prayer, where she could write her own thoughts and prayers and reflections while she's waiting. She has such influence. She also has an influence over them when they're in utero. She can pray for them instead of just waiting, waiting. She would be prayerfully waiting. She's praying for that little unborn baby, as grandmothers do, right? So yes. That is basically why I thought they would be important. And it focuses on the fact that every single baby, born or unborn, every single person is a unique and unrepeatable gift of human life. So even if, the child is miscarried, that baby, went straight to heaven, it doesn't mean that child didn't exist just because you didn't get to hold that child in your arms. Every person has a soul. Every person is beautiful in God's eyes, and God created each person. So I want to celebrate, want to help grandmothers and families to celebrate that unique, beautiful unborn child, wherever that child ends up, in your arms or in the arms of Jesus and Mary. We need to pray for that child and to celebrate that life.
Yes. And grandparents they're so excited when they have a grandbaby coming, they're just
Yeah,
excited as the expectant parents. And I think it's a great idea that you had to do this for grandparents as well, grandmothers, especially. And maybe next you can do one for fathers, but men are not as, I don't know, men today, it seems like the young fathers today are much more involved than they
yeah.
were in my generation.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, with me, and not to put my late husband down at all, but he never, changed diapers. He was like, that's the mother's duty. That that's mothers take care of the children, and stuff like that was kind of the attitude. But I love it
Mhm.
when I see the fathers interacting now, and I see fathers pushing strollers down the street or holding the baby during mass and things like that. And I think,
Mm.
oh, that's just so beautiful. So, men might be very open to reading a book too to help them to be better fathers. It might be something you can put in your schedule.
Mhm.
I know you've got
Yeah.
other things you're working on right now as well, but I think this is great, and that grandmothers can read this book and give them a lot of things to focus on and prepare while the mother is going through this pregnancy. How do you think this book can help grandmothers?
Well, yeah. So it gives them not only that place to record their own thoughts and prayers, because every chapter, and there are 9 chapters for the pregnancy, have lots of spaces for her to write in. But it's also a teaching book. It can help her because I'll just give you an example of the chapter titles: praying with gratitude, lovingly praying, praying with hope, joyfully praying, perseveringly praying, faithfully praying, steadfast in prayer, earnestly praying, patiently waiting. And each chapter is filled with teachings. I go back to St. Anne and St. Joachim and Elizabeth and Mary, and I quote from some great sources, I think, authentic sources, to get the teachings, so that we can learn a little bit more about them, about Jesus even had a grandmother, St. Anne. So I wanted her to be a big part of this book. So I think the grandmother reading it will learn something more about her faith, hopefully, and we'll have these special original prayers and some traditional prayers throughout each month to pray for her unborn baby, and to record her thoughts, and to just help to prepare herself for the role of being that grandmother, whether it's the first time, her first grandchild, or her 10th. Each baby is different. Each baby is a whole unique, unrepeatable human being, and so each pregnancy is different too. So I think, and I'm praying that this book will nourish the heart and soul of that grandmother while she's waiting.
Right. I think it's a beautiful idea. Unfortunately, I didn't have the blessing of knowing my grandmothers. My mother's mother unfortunately had dementia when I was
Oh,
born, and so she never really understood who I was. We just couldn't bond because of that. They probably would say it was Alzheimer's today, but
yeah.
and then my other grandmother, my father's mother, I remember I was very small. I remember her holding me in her lap, but she died when I was like in the first grade. And I just loved her so much. And I was so upset when she died. I was just heartbroken. And I just missed the fact that I didn't have her throughout my childhood. I remember
Oh,
it's kind of funny, but my mother told me, I remember she was sick at home, and she died at home in her bed. And I remember going to see her when she was sick and laying in the bed. And I was only allowed in for a few minutes, and I really don't remember what she died of. But I remember my mother telling me when she told me that she had died, I said, well, what happened? What happened? And she said, well, she was sick, and she said, and, the doctor came and he gave her an injection, and then she died. And I'm like, the doctor killed her. He gave her an injection and
oh,
and it was like, my mother's like,
oh,
no. But that's, a first grader. My mind is, I hear the doctor gave her a shot and then she died. It's like, oh my God,
wow.
the doctor killed her. But Took a while
Yeah.
for my mother to get that out of my head, but
Oh.
I wish I'd known my grandparents, and but I
Mm.
did know my grandfathers, and for a long time, and my grandmother's grandfather lived with us when I was a teenager
Oh.
growing up, and that was
Oh.
that was nice to have him. He lived to be 102, so
Wow.
that was amazing. But this
That's beautiful.
this is such a great thing, and this book, as you said, this is a journal, right? That they can
Yes.
things as they read.
Yes. So in each chapter, I'll just give you an example. Just flipping through, like you start a chapter and it gives a teaching, it gives, just like a I'm talking to them about, in a very conversational tone about, being a grandmother and different anecdotes and things, sharing stories. And then it goes right into discovering your grandbaby's developments. And then it goes into your own words, my hope and prayer for my grandchild this month. And I'll just skip over a lot of the elements of the chapter to get to the next part where she writes in the book. And that part is my reflections on being a grandparent during this month of the pregnancy. And then giving thanks to God for having created my grandbaby, a prayer in my own words, So it's something that will end up being a keepsake book as well as a journal. So later on, I talked to one grandmother friend, and she said, and this is what I had thought too would be really nice to do, is to gift it to that grandchild when they're old enough to know that, this is a book that your grandmother wrote about you before you were even born and what her thoughts and prayers were. So I think it will make a nice keepsake for the grandmother for a while. And then if she's willing to give it up, she can give it to that grandchild or his or her mother. So
Absolutely.
I'm hoping and praying it'll be a blessing, hopefully, to them.
Oh, yes. Donna Marie, speaking of that, I found this book or journal book like that years ago when my mother was still living. And I gave it to her for Mother's Day. We have Mother's Day coming up, and that's, by the way, I encourage people, this would be a great book for Mother's Day. But, but anyway, is it out yet, Donna Marie, or is it?
Oh, yes. Yes, this book is out. So,
okay. It would be a great book to give to a grandmother for Mother's Day or a mother. But, I came across this book that was it had questions in it for you to give to your mother about asking about her childhood, her growing up, and it had different questions like, what was your favorite thing to do? What kind of hobbies did you have? What did you have a secret friend? And then when did you start dating, and who was your first date? And do you remember your first dance? And things like that all through their life. And they would fill it in. And it took my mother probably, I don't know, a year or so to fill it in. She'd write a little bit every once in a while. But I just treasure that book, Donna Marie, because I have it now. And I can read things about how she said that in her childhood that she and her friends buried these little treasure things in their neighbor's yard, and they talked about I don't know, things that they had made and they buried it there. And I'm thinking, oh wow, wouldn't it be so cool to go to that yard and find it, or her first date and her first kiss and all that. It was wonderful. So I know that this book, like you said, would be a great thing for a child to have when they're older, to read about how their grandparent, what they were thinking about them and preparing for them to come into the world. It'll be a blessing to them. I think that's a wonderful idea. And
thank you.
I hope all those that are listening will go out and get this book. We got Mother's Day is coming just up real soon. And so this would be a great book. And if you can't get it for Mother's Day, you can certainly get it for another occasion or get it for yourself. But, I know that you have another book coming out soon for women, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Not many people know about this yet because it's just beginning to be public knowledge. So you're probably familiar with the Divine Mercy book that I wrote called 52 Weeks with Saint Faustina, A Year of Grace and Mercy. Well, this one that I just wrote, and it's another labor of love. It's a huge book, actually. I call it huge because it's very substantial. It's Divine Mercy in a Woman's Life, Milestones Along the Way. So what it does is it's like St. Faustina is right there taking you by the hand, taking you through. It's from before birth or during the pregnancy time all the way to death and beyond, getting the mother and the woman rather, the girl, the woman, all throughout her life. And some of the chapters might not pertain to certain people, but I put whatever I felt should be in the book. In other words, trying to say, like, it does cover abortion. It does cover, I'm trying to think what I'm trying to, death. Death. Everybody knows about death because
Right.
we have loved that die and stuff like that. So you might not, or divorce rather is another one. Not everybody goes, but it's just so that we go through all the different milestones. Oh, lots of joyful ones, sorrowful ones. It's not a frilly book. It's a down-to-earth book that hopefully will make you laugh, make you cry, make you cheer, make you dig deep into your faith and really celebrate womanhood. So it's not all, just sorrowful. I mean, it's very joyful too, but we do, I want to touch upon all of the different aspects of different milestones in a woman's life. So like if we're ministering to people, to women who go through certain things that we've never experienced, perhaps we can learn more by reading of these experiences of people who have shared with me and myself too, sharing anecdotes and experiences from my own life. So it's to nourish the heart of a woman. It's to allow Jesus' divine mercy to guide us. And Saint Faustina is the one to teach us about that because she is Jesus's secretary of divine mercy. He made her his apostle of divine mercy. So there's a lot to that book, and I hope and pray that.
Book too, right? Another big book.
Yeah, another big book. And I really hope that men will read it too, because then they'll get an idea of how women tick. Because, what makes us up? What are our gifts and virtues, and what are our, our faults, and how do we negotiate and navigate and get through this crazy life, so with lots of grace and God's divine mercy for sure. But there's just amazing stories that fill this book that God, I really feel, unfolded in my life as during the right. And I wrote this book during the pandemic, with lockdown most of the time. The first part of writing it was during lockdown, and just craving Jesus in the Eucharist, craving going to Mass, and interviewing people virtually for the book, and just a lot to it. And these stories just kept coming to me through the way our Lord unfolded it, where I couldn't even I believe God is so amazing and he does all these amazing things, but sometimes when it happens you're thinking, whoa, I never expected to have this story in the book, and how this is so tied to divine mercy. I even have I have miracles in the book, true miracles, lots of amazing stories. So I'm very excited about people getting it and being able to read and having it nourish their heart.
And tell us the name of that again.
That's called Divine Mercy in a Woman's Life, Milestones Along the Way, also with Marian Press. They published the first one, 52 Weeks with St. Faustina. So it's Divine Mercy in a Woman's Life. And it should be out, Lord willing, before the end of this year, 2021. Hopefully it's going to come out in September, October, before Christmas. With the pandemic, things have been delayed, but now it's, Lord willing, off to the printer to, get published. So it'll be out there for everyone.
Yes, I think it's a wonderful book, and I gave an endorsement for that book. And you are
Yes.
an incredibly gifted and prolific writer. I know, the Holy Spirit guides you, and God gives you the ability and the time to get it all done. Donna Marie, recently I interviewed Anthony DeStefano, and he told me that since his youth, he wanted to write books, but he could never decide what to write about until he prayed and he asked our Blessed Mother to help him. And he said, ever since that prayer, the ideas and the writings just kept pouring out of him. And and the same thing is going on with you. I think God is gracing you and giving you all these thoughts, like you were just saying, the amazing things that just come together and are there. And I just think you certainly have our Blessed Mother's help, as well as Saint Mother Teresa. As we mentioned
you.
earlier, you were a personal friend of Saint Mother Teresa, and I have this
Mhm.
beautiful little prayer card that you gave me that shows Mother Teresa holding one of your babies up in the air.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful card. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't want a picture of Mother Teresa holding their child? It's a great picture.
No.
This is your, I forget which child this is of yours.
That
One of
was Jo-
yours.
that one was Joseph, and
Oh,
he's been with all of us and prayed for the pregnancy of my baby, Mary Catherine, who's
oh,
almost 30. She's almost 30. And that was the pregnancy where, Gail, just real quickly, that was the pregnancy where all the book writing started. I
oh,
was a writer just because I wrote op-ed pieces for, pro-life, and I was a mother, a full-time mother. I didn't have time to write. And so, but God kept pushing me to, and pouring the inspiration in my heart. And then he put me still during that pregnancy, put me still with a precarious pregnancy. So I couldn't run around and do all those other soccer mom things that I normally did. He
right.
put me still. And when he put me still, it all came flooding in. And that was when I wrote the first more than one book during that time of bed rest. I had 4 older children at the time, and I had a hemorrhage uterus and a heart condition, and all kinds of crazy things happened during that pregnancy. But God had me write, and I never planned to ever do this. It was just wanting to, help others get to heaven, and God put that desire in my heart. So I give all glory and praise to him.
Oh, yes. And I know I can almost picture, you sitting at your desk writing and, that you're surrounded by all these saints, Mother Teresa, the
Yeah.
Blessed Mother, everybody giving you
Oh,
inspiration. You're truly blessed, my friend. You really are.
oh,
I just,
you're,
it's amazing
you're so,
how many books you've written and all the things you're doing. But, we still have some time left, Donna Marie, and I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about your personal life. You're married to Dave and you live in Connecticut. Tell us about
mhm.
a little bit about your family life there in Connecticut, because we've got about 10 more minutes and I'd like to hear more. I know our listeners would love to hear some of the personal things about how your days go. I know you have beautiful pictures on your Facebook of birds and deer and wildlife around your house.
Oh, well, okay. That's another big question. So, okay, well, I'll do what I can do. But
Okay.
speaking of birds, I do have to mention, yes, I'm a lover of nature, and I believe God gives us this beautiful creation. So you have to take a moment here and there to peek out the window. Even if you're busy at your computer and you have all these deadlines, and you just have to, open the door and walk out there. And so this morning I saw a red cardinal pulling a worm up out of the ground, and then he goes over and he puts it in the mouth of his wife, the female
Oh,
cardinal. And I
wow.
just love, and look, just look at that, how men, even in nature, the male takes care of the woman.
Yeah.
He feeds her, and I've caught that happening lots of times with the seeds that I put out. He'll pick up the seed and he'll go and put it in her mouth. So I just think that's beautiful. So if I catch things, nature, God's beauty, I try to snap it, picture of it real quickly with my cell phone. It's so
That's
nice we have
amazing.
cameras on our phones now.
That's
Yeah, and just put them
amazing
out there
that
to
you said that,
inspire.
because
What did you say?
I said it's amazing that you brought that up, because just yesterday I came across a picture of a male cardinal feeding his mate, seeds. I'd never
Oh,
seen that. I didn't know they did it, and I showed it to Steve, and I said, "Isn't this beautiful? Look at this. It looks like they're kissing." And he said, "Wow."
yeah,
I said, "He's feeding her." I didn't know they did that. That's amazing.
yeah.
Get a picture of that?
Yeah, I got, yeah. And I was just going to put it on this morning on Instagram, but I didn't have time because, I had to go speak today at our church. And then I had to, I had all this
Ready
book
for this
writing to do,
interview?
and then
All right.
meeting with you here now. But I'll post it probably tomorrow, but I
Oh,
have
please do.
posted
I'd love to
in
see.
sure. And I posted in the past about the cardinal feeding the female. I put things out there on social media, not only to show, the beauty of it all, because it is beautiful, but also for a little subliminal message, like, here we are, here's the male, he's taking care of the female. He protects her, he feeds her. So God even puts that in nature. I think that's really cool. But you said, we live in Connecticut. Yes, we live in Connecticut, back in the woods. We have bear that come through our
Wow.
yard, bears that come through. Some days, it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a big bear in the front yard, and you look out the other window, oh, there's another one. So
Oh my goodness.
unfortunately, I can't go for all the walks that I used to like to go for because you have to be careful. There's bears. We have bobcats, big bobcats, and
Oh,
different kind of wildlife. I love the birds, but we also have the real wildlife. But I still am very happy, to be back here in the country, because it's amazing to think that when God found this place for us years ago, he gave it to me because it's very quiet and it's in nature, and like you said, I have all the saints around me. It feels like writing and doing all the stuff that I feel our Lord wants me to do. It doesn't mean the writing is effortless, when you just sit there and here comes the inspiration. Writing is work, but it's a joyful work, because that you're trying to do what God is calling you to do.
right.
And so there are times when it floods you so much that you can't even get it down on the computer or on paper fast enough. I have pads and pads of paper and notes and everything all over the place. And I have many books in my head, and I have many more that are, going to come out. I'm working on others too. A children's story that's coming out, that will be coming out hopefully before Christmas. And I've not said anything to anyone publicly about it yet, but I think I'm going to give a teaser here on your show, Gail, that I have a beautiful children's book coming out before Christmas, Lord willing, and it has something to do with Christmas.
Ah,
And there will be beautiful illustrations and I believe, a beautiful story that is timeless, because it's something we want to teach our children and our grandchildren. So I've been
what
working
age
on that.
range would you say it's for, Donna Marie? What age children?
I would say 3 or 4 up until 8 to 10 years old, that whole span, because once you start reading that to a child at 3 or 4 years old,
Yeah.
I mean, my littlest grandson is 3, Leo. I have 2 grandsons. Shepherd just turned 6. Now Leo, well, he's quick as a whip and he knows just about everything. So he would definitely understand at his tender age of 3. So I would say 3, on up. The parent or the grandparent knows the child and what they can understand. But so we need to introduce children at a young age to our faith and to important truths of the faith, and do it in a gentle and loving way, but definitely get the truth in there.
Absolutely.
So like Father Andrew Apostoli,
Right.
he was my dear friend. Yeah, he was my dear friend, and he was a Fatima expert. He wrote a couple of forwards to my Fatima books, and on one of them, the children's Fatima book, Our Lady's Message to 3 Shepherd Children in the World, he wrote in the beginning of the book that it was for him as a young child, how he watched the movie of Fatima back then and how it had made such an impression on his heart.
Mhm.
And so, he said it always stayed with him. If you can get that message, or you can teach a child when they're at a tender age of 4 or 5 years old, 4 or 5, 6, 7, that time period, it will stay with them and it will be foundational for them. So I kind of feel, Gail, like I'm going to continue doing the adult books that I've been doing, but I feel like God is saying to me, you put the oxygen mask on the adults. Now you can start belting out the books for the kids now.
Yeah.
I've got 3 books out already for kids, and this one coming out. But I have such a passion I just feel like I have so much more by the grace of God, going to do for the children, because they really need, we need to counteract the bad stuff that's out there. So, if we can keep giving them the truth and the beauty of our faith, told in a storybook fashion, told in, just a loving fashion, we're going to help those children.
Oh, I totally agree. And I'm really excited about this children's book that you're coming out with around Christmas, because my next door neighbors, I've mentioned before,
Thank you.
a family of 8, and their youngest, who is just 4, she's
Oh,
she is my namesake. They named her
oh my
Lucy
goodness.
Teresa Gale, and they call her Lucy Gale.
Oh,
And she's so
oh,
precious. And so I want to get this book for her because her mother reads to her and is teaching her about the Blessed Mother and about Jesus. And so I would love to get that book for
oh,
her. And, I told her
yes.
I'd gotten another children's book for her that Anthony Estefano had written, about the Blessed Mother's wardrobe.
Yes.
And
I have.
yeah, and it's a wonderful book, and I got that for her, and in the front, I hope you're going to have a place in the front, presented to, from, because I wrote
Oh, yeah.
in the book presented to and from, and the date, and I told her mother, when you read this to her, please put it away where it won't get torn up, with 8 kids in the house,
Oh,
and
yeah.
for her, because I recently, Donna Marie, came across a book in my basement, going through some stuff that one of my mother's friends gave to me when I was like 4 years old, and I was in the
Wow.
hospital with a kidney problem, and I was
Wow.
so thrilled with that book, and it meant so much to me, and I still have it, and it's a
Wow.
treasure to me. So I'm excited that you have a book coming out that I can give to Lucy Gale.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yes, and I'll send you one as soon as
Oh,
they're released. Definitely a signed copy, and then you can put your presented to and from in there. I'm going to make sure that's in the beginning of my book that I have
wonderful.
a page. I
That's
love that.
I think it's a great idea to have that in there because people like to give books as gifts, and it means a lot, especially for a child, for them to be able to keep it as a keepsake
Yeah.
and remember later on. Well, we're out of time, Donna Marie. It's been so great talking to you. You're probably the most famous friend I have. I mean, really, you were personal friends with Mother Teresa. Your spiritual director was renowned Father Hardin. You have numerous TV shows on EWTN. You've written a gazillion books. You've won numerous awards and been on Fox News. You've spoken around the world. My goodness, girl, what haven't you done?
Oh, Gail, you're funny. You're funny. But you know what? I have to say, all for the glory of God and the good of his people. Like Mother Teresa said, make sure you do everything for the glory of God, the good of his people. And I share these friends and these saints because I can't keep them to myself. That's why, I write so much and I speak so much, because I want to let people know what Father Hardin taught or what Mother Teresa taught. We need to share it, right? And it was such a beautiful, blessed time to chat with you, Gail. We need to get together in person.
I love it. I
Yeah.
loved it. And so I hope to talk to you again soon. And thank you so much
Yes.
for being with us today. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Gail.
This has been Gail Buckley Barringer with the Carolina Catholic Spotlight Show on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. Thank you for tuning in. And please join me every Tuesday at 5 p.m. to find out who my next guest will be in the spotlight.